So when I was a kid, when I was a boy, something like 8 or 9 years old, I had a great mentor, Phantasma, basically mom. So what happens is she was a very, very astute metaphysicist. She was a Wakani witch, and she wanted always to teach me her knowledge. And at that kid time, I was like, an 8-year-old, 8.5-year-old kid, learning things from her as you know, it was the night's fall, and then under the moon, these abandoned buildings, learning these very strong lessons about metaphysics. Now, one of the things she taught me was a spell, as it were, but not like a spell you see in modern witchcraft. Nothing like you'd see in and Wiccan magic or Druidic magic or Santeria or voodoo. Wakani Obsidian witchcraft works in a different way. It merges the minds with metaphysical properties outside of our known knowledge. Okay, so one of the things that she did was teaching me a darkling spell. It's a very strange thing to have a spell named darkling. It sounds like something you see out of a video game. But basically, what a darkling spell is the manipulation of shadow. So this is a weird thing. This is kind of like you'd see something on the David Copperfield show or a magician that's kind of using a sleight of hand. No, it's not that. It's nothing like that. That's understanding the way mind works with metaphysics. And my mother was teaching me this in a very dramatic way because she would conduct these spells against people who are dare I say, a little bit unwholesome. So basically, when you learn any spell that's harmful, in other words, you learn how to do something uh, to cause harm to people, there's a responsibility. You need to have a responsibility. One of those responsibilities is never, never use a spell to hurt a person that is an ordinary person. You don't want to do that. Why would you do that? That would make you a bad cat, wouldn't it? So who do you use these spells on? Well, you use these spells on people who wake up every day and dedicate their lives to causing other people harm. That means not a person who just caused one incident of harm, but in other words, people who are dedicated to causing people pain and disarray. Unfortunately, in the world, there are many people like this. But let's get back to the shadow work, as it were. See, a lot of people don't understand what shadows are. So you might remember when you were a kid, you would look in a corner of your bedroom and you'd see a shadow. Okay, you grab a flashlight, you pointed at it, and lo and behold, the little shadow just runs away, as it were. But sometimes shadows don't work that way. A lot of times people think that shadows are casted by light, and that's certainly the way it seems, isn't it? But really, that's not the case. As a matter of fact, even physicists don't understand what shadows are. So in the world of physics, physicists themselves admit that they really don't understand how light works or shadows. So let me give you an example. There is a shadow that is, as I would say, stuck, literally caught in time. And anybody can go see it. So where is this at? Well, this has to do with Hiroshima, Nagasaki. So in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where we dropped the atomic bombs, something strange happened. So people that were caught in the direct radius of that blast were disintegrated. But they left behind something odd, a strange phenomenon that people don't understand. As a matter of fact, even physicists don't understand what this is. They left behind permanently their shadows. Literally. You can actually go Google this and see the shadow of them. And no, it's not a burnt mark, it's not a scrub, or it's not a smear. It is something they don't understand what it is. It's literally their shadow encased in the cement around them. Now that shouldn't happen. and it should be explained. It's explained by some people, but that no, that explanation is not credible. So what does it prove? It proves that shadows work in different ways that nobody ever expected. So let's talk about my mom. Okay? So good old Phantasma. So these people who are causing some disarray needed to have disruption in their life. In other words, you know, you got to understand when people are causing disarray in other people's lives, they need to be somehow distracted. So even though people are different and have different demeanors and different ideas and different ideologies, in large part, our brains work the same way. You know, we're going to have the same types of reactions if certain parts of our brains are stimulated. For example, people who do cocaine, almost every person who does cocaine have what they call cocaine tics. They get nervous, their eyes blink, you know, they twitch, they lick their lips, whatever it is they do. In other words, because their brains are stimulated in a certain way, they start to develop these type of Tourette's and OCD type of habits. Okay, and this goes across the board. It doesn't matter if you're Asian, black, white, young, or old. It just goes across the board the same way with the same behavior. Why? The reason why is because our brains, although we're very different people individually, they still work in the same manner under certain conditions. Why am I bringing that up? Well, my mother knew all about that, but she knew how to make reactions into people without drugs, but through stimulation of images and fears and ideas, and also sensations implanted in the mind. So let's go back to shadows. So one day, this person who was the victim of my mother, who was doing evil every day, decided that there was something odd about the lighting in his room. Maybe you ought to get yourself a new light, buddy. So what happened was he started to notice that there was a shadow within a shadow. Yeah. So he looks inside the room, the corner of his room, and in that room, in the shadow, was a really dark spot. It's like an inkwell. That's odd. So he grabs a flashlight, points it, and it shoos away. But what he starts to notice is that when he's talking to people, he can see their shadows like other people can't. Well, it's not that he's seeing shadows like other people can't. He can't help noticing them. What? That's an involuntary reaction, isn't it? So he's talking to people, and he becomes obsessed with the shadow that they're casting. And every time he sees the shadow that they're casting, as it would in the normal world, these shadows don't have particular shapes or whatever. As a matter of fact, they sometimes are elongated, they're sometimes short, they're sometimes, you know, lighter, they're sometimes darker. Whatever the case, he can't get himself free from the obsession of the properties of those shadows. As a matter of fact, he becomes so obsessed with these shadows that he himself is having a hard time functioning. And since he's having a hard time functioning, he's having a hard time sleeping. And when he's having a hard time sleeping, he's having a hard time getting through the day doing the evil shit that he was normally doing. Now, the reasonable part of his brain is saying, hey, why am I being obsessed with shadows? How can I stop this? Well, you can't. Because the way my mother does things, she implanted in his mind for him to be obsessed with those shadows long enough to get him to stop doing certain things that he shouldn't be doing. Now, of course, this has to do with mental psychological tactics, but it's not only mental psychological tactics, it's also metaphysics. Because despite the fact that they're suffering, no doubt, from OCD and Tourette's when they're obsessing almost in schizophrenic fashion over these shadows, there's also something happening in reality. So it's a combination between something that's happening in reality through metaphysics and something happening psychologically. Ooh, that sounds nasty. And it is nasty, because if you're so obsessed with these things that you can't even have a conversation with a person, it starts to become a disability and a hindrance. And the first thing you want to do is go back to your comfortable life. Yeah. So, what's the lesson here? The lesson is that magic in the Wakanda Obsidian way, manner, and method is not like the magic you see that Wiccans practice. It's not like the magic you see that Druids practice. It's not like the magic you see that Hoodoo and Hoshe people, Voodoo priestess, and so forth practice. It's not the magic of Santeria. It's the magic of something that involves more than wishful thinking. What it does is it connects the metaphysical world of physics and the psychology of the mind to make you so uncomfortable that you can't live your life in an ordinary fashion. How interesting. So, once again, we go back to when you should use magic like this, when you should use these things that probably should not be called magic anymore. When do you actually use these things? You use hurtful properties, hurtful spells only for those people who get up every day and cause evil and harm every day. Never cause harm to an ordinary person. Never use your skills to make an ordinary person suffer, even if they did something bad once. You got to preserve those type of hurtful skills for the people who are dedicated to causing hate, hurt, and disarray in society every single day of their lives. And it's those people who more than deserve something like shadow play and darkling spells and OCD and Tourette's and disruption. These are the people that need to be stopped the most, and it's people like us that can sometimes make an impact.